guess it's time. Deeds outran that horse you swore could fly. They tried to let you live.
Hi there, welcome to the Underdog podcast. I'm your host, Chris Cameron. Today we'll be talking about the Academy Award nominations, what the Oscars chose for like Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, all that stuff. Before I get that started, I'd just like to make a quick shout out to my good friend Stevan Denmark, who provided the music at the beginning of this podcast. I will be putting a link for his music on my YouTube page and also on my SoundCloud. So if you want to check him out, I'll put an Instagram link on there, Facebook link. You can look him up on there too. Also look him up on iTunes. He's got some pretty good stuff. I like it a lot. I would suggest checking it out. But yeah, let's get to the topic at hand. So the Academy Awards, they released their nominations this year for the 2018 Oscar nominations. And I'm looking at Variety.com right now. If you're watching YouTube, I'm looking at it on the laptop. If you're listening on the podcast, sorry about this. I'm just looking it up on my laptop right now. So we'll just go with the list that they have. We'll just kind of go through all the recommendations and not recommendations. Excuse me. All the what they considered the best picture nominations. So or like best picture, best actor nominations, all that stuff. Anyways, so best picture. There's a couple on there that make sense. Dunkirk was a pretty good movie. Saw that. That was probably my favorite film of the year. They also have Lady Bird on there too. I've also watched that too. Shout out to Greta Gerwig. I think that's how you pronounce her name. She's a Sacramento native. I'm also a Sacramento native too. Phantom Thread's on there. It's the Daniel Day-Lewis movie. I have not seen that yet, but that makes sense. It's on there. And Darkest Hour is the one with Gary Oldman about Winston Churchill. That's also on there too. The two that are really surprising that kind of stand out to me are Get Out and The Shape of Water. Both of those I would have never thought would have gotten Best Picture nominations, but I'm actually glad that they did. The reason I say that is because Get Out is a horror film. It's a psychological horror film about deals with the subject of race. It's just not the kind of movie that I guess the Academy Awards kind of choose, or they normally don't choose those movies as far as Best Picture nominations. And then the other one is The Shape of Water, fantasy one. That's also kind of a horror film. I'd consider it more fantasy, but it's also kind of like an homage to old school horror films. It's kind of like The Creature in the Black Lagoon, but it's more of like a love story, I guess. But yeah, those both surprised me as far as nominations go. I think Dunkirk and Get Out were probably the best two films of the last year, so I'm glad that both of them are on there. As far as let's see, lead actor goes, they've got Gary Oldman. Got Daniel Day-Lewis, Denzel Washington, all of those guys, great actors. Gary Oldman and Denzel Washington are probably like top 5 favorite actors. Both of them are in movies that I would highly recommend to people. Gary Oldman actually is in a film that I really like a lot. It's called State of Grace. It's with him, Sean Penn, and Robin Wright is also in it too. It's like a gangster film. It came out around the same time as Goodfellas did, but it's a really good film. It's like one of his best performances I've ever seen. But I'm really glad that he got this one too for Darkest Hour. I saw Darkest Hour. I thought it was a pretty good performance by him. He's in makeup and stuff like that, so it's worth watching. He gets really into character too. Denzel Washington, I haven't watched the movie that he was in yet, but I recognize him as a really good actor. I think he's a phenomenal actor, and I wouldn't be surprised if he came home with an Oscar too. So I'll have to get to watching the one that he was in. The one that does stand out, and forgive me for mispronouncing his name because I know I'm going to, is Daniel Kaluuya, if that's how you pronounce it. And he's the main actor in Get Out, and I think that's pretty cool because he's a young actor. Got nominated for a film that's a horror film. So he's performing in a horror film, so it's kind of cool because it's an interesting nomination choice, or at least performance choice. But I still thought it was really good. I thought his acting in the movie is phenomenal, so I'm glad he got nominated too. It'd be cool to see him win too, because it'd be kind of like an underdog winning that category. Lead actress, you got a couple like Sally Hawkins, Margot Robbie, Meryl Streep. Sally Hawkins is probably my favorite out of any of the performances, just because I think she did the most interesting kind of performance. Her character in The Shape of Water is a mute character, so she doesn't talk at all throughout the entire movie. She uses sign language. But something I didn't know, I did a little bit of research on, is Sally Hawkins previously didn't know sign language, so she had to learn sign language for the film, and she had to kind of do that to get more in depth with the character and stuff like that. But it's not like her character is just using sign language. That's it. It's also the emotion she shows in her eyes. It's also the facial movement she uses too. So even though she doesn't talk the entire film, she shows some kind of emotion throughout the film, and it's pretty cool. And I just think, like, again, with the Gary Oldman thing, it's cool how in depth actors get. I respect that a lot, as far as that art form goes and stuff like that. Supporting actor is nothing like really that interesting to me. Woody Harrelson maybe is like the only cool, interesting nod. Oh, that and I guess Christopher Plummer too. Fun fact: if Christopher Plummer does win an Oscar for All the Money in the World for his performance in that movie, he will be the oldest actor to ever win an Oscar. He's like 88 years old. Pretty cool fact. Fun fact, I think. I think it's interesting. I don't know. That, to me, that just shows that age is nothing. At least in the arts as far as that goes, you can win an award at any age apparently. But it's cool too to see that he's acting still at that age too. It's awesome. Supporting actress, you got Mary J. Blige from Mudbound. Mudbound's a really good movie. It's on Netflix. I recommend that. Her performance in it is pretty good. Octavia Spencer, same thing. She's the friend of Sally Hawkins' character in The Shape of Water. She's also pretty good in it too. I like Octavia Spencer. She's an amazing actress. So I wouldn't be surprised if she won it either. As far as directors go, I've got two. Got Dunkirk, Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan in general is just one of my favorite directors of all time. He directed Inception, which I think is like one of the best movies ever made. He also did The Dark Knight, which is probably one of the most popular movies ever made. And then he also did Interstellar and Memento and all these other like crazy films. I could go in depth about him. I could probably do a separate podcast just on him, but he's a crazy director. He's phenomenal at what he does. He's artistic. He writes great stories. I think it's just, he's like the director of our time. But the other one I like too, kind of the underdog in this division, I think, is Jordan Peele, as in like Key and Peele, Jordan Peele, from Get Out. And the reason I like that so much is that it just goes to show, as far as like an artist goes, from his standpoint of things, he can go from being a guy who's performing on Comedy Central, Mad TV, Key and Peele, all this like funny stuff, to writing something really serious and something with like an actual like political point, as Get Out had. And so it's interesting to see how he can kind of like diverge as an artist from being somebody who is so funny, or known for being someone who's so funny, to doing something so serious and so actually like that actually has a point, and that was actually kind of worth watching, I guess you could say. Not that Key and Peele isn't worth watching. Definitely go watch that. It's a pretty funny show. But Get Out, like I said, both those films and both those directors are probably like the best of the year, I would think, in my opinion. And I'm happy to, side note, if Jordan Peele, if from what I'm reading, is going to be directing all the new Twilight Zone episodes for our generation, that's going to be cool, because Get Out was essentially like an hour and 45-minute long Twilight Zone episode. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do with that. Animated features, there's nothing really there. I'm just interested. I thought it was curious that there's no like Pixar films or Disney films necessarily. I don't know if all those are Disney films or not, or if some of them are or not. But there's no Pixar films. Usually they dominate that section. So adapted screenplay, interesting little thing that happened there is that Logan, as an X-Men Wolverine movie, got nominated. And so I think that's pretty cool, because it's kind of a little nod to the superhero genre. They're not just stuck in the effects category anymore. They're also now kind of branching off into the storytelling aspect of it. I don't think we'll ever see him get nominated for like acting and stuff. I think the only actor who's ever been nominated for a comic book role was Heath Ledger for the Joker. That's it. Maybe I might be wrong. I have to do some research. But as far as I know, in recent years, the only guy who's been nominated for a superhero movie role was Heath Ledger's Joker. But yeah, Logan, that's cool. It's adapted screenplay. It's kind of in the writing category. It's cool because I thought Logan, I'm not a big superhero movie fan, but Logan to me was kind of like more like a Western than it was a superhero movie. It was more of like a serious superhero movie, if you could say. Also, James Mangold, the guy who directed it and the guy who partially wrote it, he directed a movie called, or the remake of 3:10 to Yuma, which I think is like one of the best Western remakes ever made. So definitely go check that out too. But it's cool to see that Logan got kind of a nod for that. As far as original screenplay, I hope Get Out blows him out of the water. It's on there for best original screenplay. I think it was one of the best original movies I've seen in a while. It definitely got people talking. The cool thing about Get Out is if you saw it in theaters, the reactions you heard from the audience are just amazing. Just because like, that's what the movie does to people. So I'm not going to ruin it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but definitely go watch it. Cinematography. This will be the last thing I guess to talk about. The most interesting thing to me about the cinematography thing is that Mudbound cinematographer Rachel Morrison is her name. She got nominated, and I guess she's the first female to be nominated in so many years. I don't know how many years exactly, but there hasn't been a female nominated in this category in quite a while for the Oscars. So it's kind of cool that they nominated a female. I have to go rewatch Mudbound again. I thought it was a really good movie, but I have to go rewatch it now just to pay attention to the cinematography. I was kind of stuck into the story of it so much that I didn't really notice the cinematography or wasn't paying attention too much about that. So I'll definitely have to rewatch it again just because of that. But appreciate you guys listening in on my podcast. I'm a huge film fan. I'm a huge film buff, so stuff like this really interests me. I'm into art too, so this also interests me as well. If you like or agree with what I said, definitely leave a comment below on my YouTube page or on my podcast on SoundCloud. If you didn't agree, let me know. I want to know what you guys think were the best films of this year, who you think the best actors were, or who you thought wrote the best screenplay. Let me know. I'm interested. I'm interested to hear. Also, too, as I say before, I kind of gave a shout out to my friend who did music. If you guys have music at all, whatever genre it might be, I'm interested in putting it on my podcast. I'd be happy to put it on there as long as it's royalty free or legal or I guess safe to put it on there. Then I'd be happy to put it on there. If it's your own original music, I'd be happy to put it on there too. Doesn't matter what genre. I'm all about supporting artists, so let me know. I'd be happy to put it on there. Also, too, if you're watching on my YouTube page, as you can see right now, I'm just wearing a sweatshirt and a hat. But if you have some kind of clothing or something, fashion's also an art form too. If you have something like that, I'd be happy to wear it. Just send me a link. It's the Underdog podcast at gmail.com. You can send me a link to your stuff, or you can send me your stuff through the mail, and I'd be happy to wear it through my podcast. Right now, I'm not supporting anyone, but if you got something you want me to wear, or some kind of charity, or either that or some kind of fashion line or something like that you have, let me know. I'd be happy to wear it. I'd be happy to support it on this podcast, and I'd be, in return, give you a shout out for it too. So thank you guys for your time. Thank you guys for listening to this podcast. My name is Chris Cameron. I am your host. Again, just keep God first. Have a good rest of your day.
You stole. It gave us the will to see you home. 1, 2, 3, 4.